It was a Tuesday, the kind of Tuesday that felt like nothing could possibly happen. I was folding laundry, answering emails between bites of cold toast, and trying to remember if I'd already fed the dog twice or not at all. Just another quiet, normal morning. Until I found it. A piece of red lace. Delicate. Expensive. Not mine. I pulled it out of our laundry basket like it had crawled in there on its own. A silky red bra. Lacy. Dainty. And at least 2 cup sizes smaller than anything I owned. My first thought? Some mix-up at the dry cleaners. My second? I don't use the dry cleaners. My fingers froze around the strap. My heartbeat didn't race. Not yet. I think that's the part that scared me more, how numb I already felt. Like my body knew what this meant, and my mind just hadn't caught up. I called out to my husband, "Nick, can you come here a sec?" He walked into the room, phone in hand, smile halfway formed. That smile died the moment he saw what I was holding. He didn't speak, didn't blink. His face turned the exact color of oatmeal. Guilty, not shocked, just caught. "I found it in the laundry," I said, voice calm. Too calm. "Do you want to explain, or should I start guessing?" He opened his mouth, closed it, then said, "That's not what it looks like." A classic. And just like that, every story I'd told myself about our solid marriage shattered with the quietest lie. It wasn't the first time I'd felt distance between us. I'd felt the silence at dinner, the fake laughs, the sudden phone calls that needed privacy. But I'd told myself marriages go through phases. Apparently, phases now meant lingerie in our laundry. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I walked out of the room. And that night, when Nick was fast asleep, the kind of heavy sleep only cheaters seem to master, I crept back to the laundry basket, dug deeper, and found something else, a receipt, tucked inside the pocket of his suit jacket, 2 lattes, 1 croissant, and a handwritten name on the bottom, Melissa, our neighbor, married, 3 doors down, and suddenly, everything made sense. Melissa. The name sat in my mouth like vinegar. I said it out loud just once to see how it felt. It didn't feel real, not at first. She was the type of woman who waved a little too enthusiastically when I brought in the trash bins, who wore perfume to water her plants, who complimented my lipstick and then wore the same shade the next week. We weren't close, but we were friendly. The neighborly kind of friendly. Borrowed sugar, swapped recipes, smiled at each other's husbands. I never thought she was the type to cross lines. But then again, I never thought he was. I stared at the receipt for a long time, reading the coffee shop's name over and over like it might rewrite itself. It was dated last Thursday, the day Nick said he had a team lunch downtown. Instead, he had coffee with Melissa. And by the look of that red lace, coffee wasn't all they were sharing. Still, I needed more than instinct. I needed proof. So I started watching. The next day, I told Nick I was going to my sister's for the weekend. He barely looked up from his phone. "Have fun," he said. I didn't go. Instead, I stayed with a friend across town and parked down the street that night. Watched our front door like a scene from a movie I never asked to star in. At 8:13 p.m., Melissa walked up the steps to my home, no hesitation, wearing heels, holding nothing. She rang the bell. Nick answered. He didn't look surprised. They didn't hug, they didn't kiss, but they didn't need to. She walked in like she'd done it before. I stayed until midnight. She never left. The next morning, I let myself into my house while he was at the gym. I went straight to the guest bathroom, the one no one really uses. That's where I found it. A pair of black panties, tucked into the side of the hamper like they were hiding. I picked them up with 2 fingers and smiled. She had a habit of leaving things behind, so I decided, next time she did, I'd return everything, with interest. Once you know, you stop asking questions, you start building a case. I didn't want a confrontation, not yet. I wanted control.
So I started keeping track of everything. Receipts, schedules, patterns, laundry. Melissa had a signature scent. Orange blossom and something expensive. The kind of perfume that doesn't just fade. It lingers. And suddenly I started noticing it everywhere. On Nick's collars, on the pillowcases in the guest room, even once faintly on my favorite coffee mug, the one I always left in the dishwasher, but somehow found sitting clean in the sink. She had been in my kitchen. I bought a small notebook and tucked it into the back of my underwear drawer. I logged every strange detail like I was preparing a case file. Tuesday. Nick says he's working late. Melissa's porch light stays off. Thursday, her car is gone by day, back by 9 p.m. Friday, 2 wine glasses in the sink. I hadn't had a sip. By the second week, I had enough to confirm what I already knew. They weren't being careful. They were being comfortable. They thought I was stupid, or too polite to notice, or too loyal to leave. But the thing about being underestimated? It gives you time to strategize. I started chatting more with Melissa's husband, Ben, casually, at the mailbox, while walking the dog. At first, I just asked how his work was going, how the kids were adjusting to summer break. He always seemed tired, distracted, but not suspicious. Yet, I didn't tell him. Not yet. Because the truth deserved more than whispers. It deserved impact. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. Nick came home one night with a dry cleaning bag, tossed it on the bed, and mumbled something about picking it up on the way home. He went to shower. I opened the bag. 3 of his suits. Pressed, clean, smelling like citrus, and at the very bottom, tucked between a blazer and a folded tie, her bra. White, lacy, delicate. I almost laughed. She had done it again. But this time, I didn't hide it. I laid it gently on top, smoothed the fabric, zipped the bag shut. Because if she wanted to leave her things in my home, I was going to make sure they ended up in hers. I waited until Saturday morning, when I knew Melissa would be out teaching her overpriced yoga class and Nick would be at his networking brunch, which I now assumed involved more lies than lattes. I dressed simple. Clean jeans, a black blouse, no makeup except lipstick. The kind that said I didn't come to fall apart. I grabbed the dry cleaning bag from the closet, the one with her white lace tucked right on top, and walked the few steps it took to reach their front door. Ben answered after 2 knocks. He looked surprised, but not unpleasantly so. "Hey, Claire. Everything okay?" "Actually, I think this belongs to you," I said, holding the bag up gently. He looked down at it, then back at me. "Nick's dry cleaning?" "No," I said. "Not anymore." He opened the door wider, confused. "You want to come in?" I stepped inside their house for the first time in years. It smelled like lemon and expensive wood polish. The kind of home where you display perfect things over perfect lies. He led me into the kitchen. I laid the dry cleaning on their marble island, unzipped it, lifted the blazer, pulled the bra out and set it gently, silently between us. Ben stared at it. He blinked once, twice, didn't speak. Then he reached into the bag and pulled out the rest, the suits, the tie, the empty hanger. He looked at me like he didn't want to ask, but couldn't help it. "Claire, what is this?" "Evidence," I said, "of what your wife's been doing in my house. While I was working, while I was cooking dinner, while I was sleeping next to a man who wore that bra's scent into our bed." His face changed slowly, like a building folding in on itself. "No," he said quietly. "Numbers she wouldn't." "She did," I said. "And it wasn't just once." He didn't cry. Not right away. He just looked at the bra like it was radioactive, like it confirmed a gut feeling he'd been swallowing for months. I didn't stay long. "I thought you should be the one to return it," I said, turning toward the door. This time, to her. He didn't follow me out, didn't say a word. And that silence? That was the sound of a second marriage beginning to crack. It didn't take long. By Sunday afternoon, I heard the knock. Sharp, fast, rehearsed. Melissa. I opened the door slowly, already bracing for the performance. And there she was, standing with sunglasses perched on her head like a crown, lips pursed, arms crossed over a perfectly fitted athleisure set. "Claire," she said, voice clipped, "we need to talk." "Do we?" I asked, leaning casually against the frame. She pushed past me. Bold, stupid. Walked right into my living room like it was still hers. I let her. She turned to face me, that familiar air of superiority barely holding together, but her hands were shaking. I noticed that right away. "I don't know what you think you're doing," she said. "But involving Ben? That was low." I almost laughed. "Low? You're standing in the house you slept with my husband in, and I'm the problem?" "I made a mistake," she snapped. "It wasn't supposed to go this far." That line. That classic line. I'd heard it before. It was always the anthem of women who got caught and wanted to keep their options. "You left your lingerie here, twice," I said. "Seems like you wanted to be found." She opened her mouth to fire back, but I didn't give her the chance. I didn't tell Ben to yell, or to leave, or to take the kids to his sister's house. That was his choice, I said, stepping closer. "Just like it was yours to pretend this wouldn't come crashing down on both of you." She blinked fast, swallowed hard. I loved him. That stopped me. For a second, maybe even a flicker of something like sadness stirred in her voice. But it was too late. "You don't love people you hide in someone else's home," I said. "You use them." She shifted, her control slipping. Then I handed her something. A Ziploc bag with her red lace bra inside. The first one I found. Washed, folded, unmistakably hers. "This belongs to you," I said. "And so does the mess that's coming." She didn't take it right away. So I dropped it at her feet. Then opened the door and said, "Get out of my house. This time with clothes on." And she did. Quietly. No slam. No scream. Just retreat. And when I shut the door behind her, I smiled for the first time in weeks. It took him 2 full days to gather the courage to say anything. By the time he finally spoke, I already knew what he was going to try. The classic spin. Twist the truth, soften the edges, make himself the wounded one. He waited until after dinner. I was loading the dishwasher, calm, deliberate. The kitchen was filled with the sound of water and clinking plates. I didn't even look up when he started talking. "Claire, can we talk?" I said nothing, just wiped my hands on a towel and turned. He looked wrecked. Not in the heartbroken way, in the caught and cornered way. "I messed up," he said. "I know that." "Which time?" I asked. His jaw tightened. "You don't have to be cruel." That made me laugh. Cruel? I was standing in the same house where he let another woman toss her lace across our floors, and I was cruel. "I'm not being cruel, Nick," I said. "I'm being accurate." He ran a hand through his hair like he always did when trying to look sincere. "It didn't mean anything. It was stupid. A mistake. She came on to me. Stop." I held up a hand. "Don't finish that sentence. You're not a teenager, Nick. No one came on to you. You opened the door, you let her in, and then you did it again. And again. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern." He looked like he wanted to argue, but there was nothing left to defend. "Ben came to see me today," I said quietly. "He's filing. They're done." Nick's face twitched. That part clearly hurt. Not because he cared about Melissa, but because the game was over. "I thought we were okay," he said suddenly. "Lately, we've been distant, but I thought we'd fix it." I shook my head. "We were fixable, until you let her unzip what we had and leave it on the floor." Silence. Then I added, "You didn't just cheat on me, Nick. You brought her home. Into my kitchen. My bed. My life." He opened his mouth again, and I said, finally calmly, "I'm done. So you don't have to lie anymore. And I don't have to listen." I walked out. And this time, he didn't follow. I started with the navy one, the one he wore to our anniversary dinner just 6 months ago. The same night he told me I was too distracted lately, and that we needed to reconnect. The same week he started sleeping with Melissa. I folded it neatly, pressed the lapels down, straightened the pocket square, and placed it gently into the suitcase. Then came the gray pinstripe, his power suit, the one he wore to meetings when he wanted to feel invincible. I packed that one too, because the man who wore it didn't exist anymore. It wasn't about rage. I wasn't slamming drawers or tearing through closets. I moved calmly, quietly, like someone untying the last knot from a rope she was no longer clinging to. I pulled out all 5 of his suits, all the ties, the gold cufflinks his mother gave him when he got promoted, the cologne he always wore when he knew I'd be close enough to notice. I packed every piece of the man he pretended to be. And then, at the very end, I opened the side drawer of the dresser, the one he thought I never touched. Inside? Another bra. Not red, not white. Black. New. Tag still on. Melissa had left behind one final insult. Or maybe she thought it was a keepsake. A reminder. Either way, I wasn't mad. I was inspired. I slipped it into a smaller bag, one of those drawstring laundry bags from the dry cleaner. I folded it, added a note, and tied it shut. Then I placed it on top of his suits. The note read, "Return to sender." Or don't. I won't be needing it. When Nick came home later that night, the suitcase was waiting by the front door. He saw it before he saw me. He stood there for a long moment like he didn't know what to say. Like he still thought there was a version of this where I let him unpack again. I didn't speak. I just handed him the handle and said, "Good luck explaining this one to her husband." And then I closed the door with both hands and no hesitation. Cheaters move fast, but not faster than me. I knew Nick, knew his patterns, knew he'd start twisting the story before his suitcase hit the back seat. She's overreacting. She's always been insecure. It was just flirting, just one time. I wasn't about to let him control the narrative, so I picked up the phone. Not to beg, not to vent, to inform. I called Lauren and Michael first. Our oldest couple friends, the ones who vacationed with us last spring and once toasted our unshakable bond. Lauren answered, "Hey Claire, everything okay?" I didn't waste time. Number Nick cheated. With Melissa. Multiple times. In our house. I've ended it. Silence. Then, "Are you serious?" Dead serious. She left lingerie in my laundry. Twice. I handed it back to her husband myself. More silence. Then a sharp inhale. "Jesus. Tell Michael. Tell whoever needs to hear it. I just want you to hear it from me. Not from Nick. Not from his rewrite." She didn't ask for proof. She didn't question my tone. She just said, "Do you want me to come over?" I smiled. Not tonight, but soon. I sent 3 more texts. One to Jen, one to Marco, one to Devin. All people we'd had dinners with, shared wine with, played the happy couple game with. Each message said the same thing. Nick cheated. It's over. I'm not embarrassed. I'm free. Just wanted you to hear the truth from me. By nightfall, I'd reclaimed every version of the story he might have tried to twist. And the responses? Unanimous support. Not pity, respect. One reply stood out the most. "I always knew you were the strong one." I read it twice. Because for a long time I hadn't felt strong. I'd felt stupid, blind, tricked. But now? Now I felt louder than his lies. Because this time I didn't wait to be believed. I just stood and spoke first. I wasn't expecting the call. Not from her. Nick's mother and I had always had a polite, surface-level relationship. She never fully warmed to me, but she respected me. Admired the way I kept Nick grounded, she once said. I wonder if she knew, even then, how much grounding he actually needed. Her name lit up on my screen just after lunch. I hesitated before answering. But curiosity won. "Hello? Claire?" she said, voice thin and trembling. "I just heard." I didn't ask how. News like this doesn't walk. It runs. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "I'm so ashamed." And that stopped me, because I wasn't expecting her to take my side. "He told me you'd left," she continued, "but he didn't tell me why. I thought maybe it was a fight. But then Lauren called." She trailed off. I let the silence sit. I had nothing to offer her. No relief, no gentle lie. "You didn't deserve this," she finally said. "And I just want you to know, I don't blame you for walking away." I exhaled, surprised at the wave of something soft inside my chest. "Thank you," I said. "That means more than you think." "I raised him better," she whispered. I didn't respond to that, because honestly, I wasn't sure if she had. Some men are excellent at learning how to appear good. Nick was a master of the illusion. "He's staying with me now," she added. But I told him not to expect sympathy. Actions have consequences. Good, I thought. Let him sit with that. "I'm sorry he hurt you," she said one more time. And this time I believed her. We said goodbye. No promises to stay in touch, no awkward pleasantries, just a shared understanding. When I hung up, I felt something unexpected. Release. Not from her. From the last tiny hope that maybe I'd overreacted, that maybe I'd missed something, that maybe I'd been too harsh. But now, even his mother saw it. And that meant I could finally stop second-guessing the fire I walked out of with both hands open. It was raining outside. Not a storm, just a steady, gray curtain of water against the windows. Fitting, really. Quiet endings don't need thunder. I lit a candle. Not for him. For me. A soft lavender one I'd been saving, like I used to save parts of myself. I opened my closet. His side was still there. Half the space untouched, like the ghost of someone who didn't earn a place in my home anymore. And I was done with ghosts. I started with the shirts, folded them neatly, no rage. No need to rip or stain or ruin. Just remove. The dress shirt he wore to the last wedding we attended. Gone. The hoodie I used to sleep in when I missed him on business trips. Gone. The tie I bought him for the promotion I celebrated more than he did. Gone. One by one, the memories became items, and the items became trash or donation. The smell of his cologne still lingered in the fabric, faint and artificial. Just like him. I found a box of cufflinks buried in a drawer, and next to it, a note I wrote him years ago. Back when I still wrote love notes. Back when I still believed effort would fix everything. It read, "I believe in us. Always." I stared at it for a long time, then folded it back into the box and tossed the whole thing into the bag. Because us had expired. I vacuumed after. Cleaned the closet walls. A reset. A reclaiming. By the time I stepped back, there was space. So much space. Not just in the closet. In my life. And for once, that space didn't feel lonely. It felt earned. I hung up my favorite coat where his suits used to be. Centered my shoes across both sides. Like a woman who had finally stopped sharing her world with someone who had no idea how to hold it. And when I turned off the closet light, I said it out loud. This house belongs to me now. Not just the floors, not just the walls, the peace, the silence, the story, all mine. It started with the comforter. I was making the bed one morning when I realized I hated it. The color, the texture, even the way it folded at the edges. It was his choice, like most of what had lived in that room. And suddenly I couldn't stand any of it. So I ripped the whole thing off. By noon, I was at the home goods store with a shopping cart and a mission. Not revenge, not theatrics, just a quiet, intentional reclamation of space. New bedding, deep forest green, rich and grounding. Throw pillows with texture and softness I could sink into. A lamp that cast golden light instead of the cold white glow Nick preferred. A framed print that read, "Rest, because you're no longer performing." I smiled when I read it, tossed it in the cart. I came home and tore the room apart like it had personally offended me. Out went the gray curtains. Out went the cold-toned wall art. Out went his books, his watch tray, the charging cable he always left tangled on the nightstand. I rearranged the furniture, placed a chair by the window where I could read in the morning sun. Moved the bed to the opposite wall, just because I could. I put a vase of eucalyptus by the headboard. Lit a new candle, sandalwood and vanilla. Not his scent. Mine. And when I stepped back, I didn't see the room we once shared. I saw mine. Not the place where I used to cry at 2 a.m. while he scrolled through his phone. Not the space where I laid awake wondering if the silence meant he was thinking of her. This was a new chapter. In cotton, wood, and warm light. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Not because the bed was softer, because the room no longer lied to me. It didn't pretend to be a sanctuary while hiding betrayal. It didn't whisper memories that didn't belong. It simply held me. Safe. Alone. But finally, at peace. It happened over something stupid, a TikTok video my friend sent me. A dog trying to catch bubbles and falling into a pool. I was sitting on my couch, wine in hand, hair in a messy bun, and before I even realized it, I was laughing. Like, really laughing. The kind that starts in your chest and rolls out in waves. No filter, no holding back. I dropped the phone onto the couch and just let it happen. And when the laughter finally quieted, I sat there stunned, because I couldn't remember the last time I'd laughed like that. Not a polite chuckle at a dinner party. Not a strained smile during another one of Nick's dumb jokes. A real laugh. That was mine. I texted my best friend. I think I just laughed for the first time since before the bra. She replied, "Welcome back." And that's exactly what it felt like. Like a piece of me had finally returned. The version of me that was light, silly, quick to giggle. The woman who used to laugh so hard she cried over nothing at all. She had been buried under suspicion, silence, betrayal. But she wasn't gone. She had just been quiet. I started chasing that feeling. I rewatched movies I used to love. The ridiculous ones. The ones Nick used to roll his eyes at. I played music loud while cooking. Danced barefoot in the kitchen. Sang off key just to make myself laugh again. Joy stopped feeling like rebellion. It started feeling like home. I wasn't healed all the way. Not yet. But this was something. Something big. Because you don't realize how deep the sadness sits until laughter shows up again and says, "You're allowed. Even now. Even after the lies. Even after the lingerie. Even after the mess. You're still allowed to laugh." And that first laugh? It wasn't the end of the pain. But it was the beginning of freedom. It wasn't a pity date. It wasn't treat yourself self-care either. It was a decision. A choice to stop waiting on someone else to pull out a chair for me. I made a reservation for one at a restaurant Nick and I used to love. The kind of place where the napkins are folded like origami, and the menu doesn't have dollar signs. I almost picked somewhere else, somewhere new. But no, I wanted this place. On my terms. When I walked in, the host gave me that quick flicker of surprise. Table for one? Yes, just me. He led me to a corner table near the window. I sat down, unfolded my napkin, and looked around. No one stared. No one whispered. And even if they had, I wouldn't have cared. The waiter came with a smile. "Waiting on anyone?" "No," I said, smiling back. "It's just me tonight." I ordered exactly what I wanted. The wine I used to skip because Nick didn't like reds, the appetizer we always split but I secretly wanted for myself. The food came. I took my time. I savored. I didn't scroll through my phone. I didn't pretend to look busy. I just was present. Halfway through dessert, A warm chocolate cake I absolutely did not intend to share with anyone. The waiter stopped by again. "I've never seen anyone look so peaceful alone," he said. I smiled. "That's because I am." It wasn't about the food. It wasn't about proving a point. It was about remembering I never needed a partner to feel worthy of a table, or a meal, or a moment. For so long, I'd made room for Nick. In my closet, in my bed, in my identity. But this night, this table was set for one. And that was more than enough. I walked out of the restaurant with leftovers in hand and joy in my chest. Because I wasn't missing anything anymore. I had everything I needed. Me, I wasn't looking. Truly. I had stopped digging, stopped chasing the rot. But sometimes closure doesn't arrive in the places you search. It shows up when you're cleaning out a drawer and find a forgotten phone charger, and the old tablet he left behind. It was still logged in. I almost set it aside. Almost. But curiosity, that slow-burning, half-healed ache, said, check. So I did. His messages with her were still there. Unarchived, bold, hundreds of texts. Mostly shallow. Some explicit. But what hurt most weren't the details. It was the familiarity. The inside jokes he used to make with me, copy-pasted into their conversations. The same pet names. The same emojis he once used to end every goodnight text to me, now sent to her. He hadn't created something new with her. He had repurposed me. And somehow that was worse. I scrolled through the thread like I was flipping pages in a book I didn't remember co-writing. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't rage. It was recognition. She hadn't stolen my husband. She'd inherited the hollow version he became when he stopped trying. He told her he was misunderstood, that I didn't appreciate him, that he felt alive with her. He didn't feel alive. He felt unaccountable. At the very end of the thread, there was a message from her, days after everything fell apart. She ruined everything. I hope you're happy. He never replied. I stared at the screen, then deleted the whole thread. Not out of revenge. Out of release. Because her words weren't true. I hadn't ruined anything. I exposed the cracks they tried to wallpaper with secrecy. I didn't cause the collapse. I simply refused to hold it up anymore. And for the first time since it all started, I no longer wanted answers. I had enough. Enough proof. Enough peace. Enough me to move forward. For weeks, months even, I carried their choices like they were mine. I felt embarrassed in rooms where no one even knew what had happened. I felt tense walking past couples holding hands, wondering if strangers could see the betrayal on my skin. Like I had something to apologize for. But I hadn't cheated. I hadn't lied. I hadn't left lace in someone else's laundry. So why was I shrinking? The truth hit me while standing in line at the pharmacy. A woman nearby was laughing. Loud, unfiltered, completely at ease. And her husband, or maybe boyfriend, leaned in and kissed her cheek. It should have stung. But it didn't. Because for the first time, I looked at love and didn't see my own broken version reflected back. I saw something separate, and I realized I wasn't ashamed of being cheated on. I was ashamed of how long I stayed quiet. Ashamed that I let myself be blamed. Ashamed that I told myself, this is just marriage, while she tiptoed through my home in perfume and lies. But standing there, holding a bottle of vitamins and a receipt that didn't matter, I straightened my spine. Because I didn't deserve the shame. They did. I wasn't the failure. I was the mirror. The moment I handed Melissa's bra back to her husband, the moment I packed Nick's suits, the moment I told our friends the truth, I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped carrying their sins for them. That night, I lit a candle. Not for healing, not for forgiveness. For release. I stood in the mirror and said out loud, their mess is not mine to clean. Their choices are not mine to defend. Their shame is not mine to hold. And I meant every word. Because survival isn't just leaving the fire. It's refusing to smell like smoke after. I almost missed her. I was reaching for almond milk. She was coming around the corner with a basket full of sparkling water and denial. Melissa. She saw me before I saw her, froze for a split second, just enough to give herself away. Then she pretended to study a shelf of overpriced granola, like we weren't both standing in the middle of a shared history she helped ruin. I didn't look away. I didn't duck. I didn't flinch. I walked straight up to her. "Hi, Melissa." Her shoulders tightened. She turned slowly, trying to manage a smile. "Claire?" "Wow. Hey." I nodded. "Didn't expect to see you out. Thought you were still avoiding eye contact with our entire zip code." She gave a tight laugh. "I'm just trying to move on." I tilted my head. "From what? Your neighbor's husband or your own wreckage?" She looked like she wanted to disappear. "I didn't come here to argue," she whispered. "Good," I said, "because I'm not angry anymore. I'm done." Her face shifted, like she didn't know what to do without a fight. "You made your choices," I added. "So did he. But here's what you didn't expect: that I'd be better without both of you." She blinked. I didn't think it would happen like that." "No one ever does," I said. "Cheaters imagine the fantasy, not the fallout." She said nothing, just stood there, holding a box of cereal like it could save her. I looked at her. Really looked at her. The flawless skin, the fake confidence, the woman who once believed she'd won something. But all I saw was empty. I leaned in, voice low. "You didn't steal anything. You got the version of him I was already preparing to leave." Then I walked away, calm, steady. And when I reached the checkout, I felt something real settle in my chest. Not victory, not revenge, just confirmation. She wasn't my competition. She was my closure. I had stopped wearing it a while ago, but I hadn't taken it off. It had been sitting on my nightstand in a little dish with loose change and earrings I no longer wore. Some days I ignored it. Other days I stared at it, wondering why I couldn't just let it go. It wasn't about love anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. It was about the weight. Not the gold, the history, the promises, the denial. The years I kept trying, even when I knew better. But that night, something shifted. I was folding laundry, mindlessly scrolling a playlist when a soft song came on. A love song. The kind that used to sting. The kind I used to turn off. But this time I let it play. I sat on the bed, held the ring in my hand, and for the first time, I didn't feel sadness. I felt relief. It wasn't a symbol of marriage anymore. It was a receipt of everything I gave, everything I endured, and everything I outgrew. I slipped it into a velvet pouch, zipped it shut, and placed it in the back of my jewelry box. Not to keep it, not to forget it, to close it. I didn't need to throw it in the ocean. I didn't need to melt it down, because it didn't hold power anymore. I did. The next morning, I looked at my left hand in the mirror. Bare, light. And instead of mourning what was missing, I admired the space I'd finally made for something real. Not a title, not a role, not someone else's idea of who I should be. Just skin, just self, just me, unclaimed. And it never looked so good. It had been on my to-do list for weeks, staring at me from the corner of the fridge. Call DMV Bank. Passport. A checklist of identity. Nick's last name had followed me like a shadow. On mail, on documents, on digital footprints I didn't ask to keep. It was everywhere, but it was no longer mine. So one morning, I took the folder I'd prepared, birth certificate, old ID, court forms, and headed to the county clerk's office. The woman at the window looked at me with kind eyes. "Name change?" she asked. I nodded. "Yes, reclaiming my maiden name." She smiled. "I love that." And I did too. Not because I hated his name, but because I had outgrown it. Outgrown who I was when I took it. outgrown the silence I lived inside while carrying it. She stamped the paper with a soft thud that sounded like closure. Claire Taylor. Again. Still. Always. I walked out into the parking lot with that paper in my hands like a diploma from a school I never meant to enroll in. One where betrayal was the tuition and healing was the graduation. At the bank, I signed the new signature for the first time. It felt shaky, then strong. The teller said, "Fresh start?" I smiled. More like a homecoming. Later that night, I ordered a new return address stamp, typed out my name. The original one. The true one. The one I paused before letting go the first time. The one I wore before I started shrinking to fit someone else's idea of love. I didn't post about it. Didn't announce it. Because this wasn't about proving anything. It was about becoming again. The kind of becoming that doesn't need witnesses. Just a woman and the quiet courage to return to herself. I used to wake up every morning with a question humming beneath the surface of everything. When will I feel normal again? Normal as in steady. Normal as in hopeful. Normal as in me. I waited for it like people wait for spring. Watching bare trees, clinging to the idea that warmth would come back if I stayed still long enough. But healing isn't seasonal. It's not predictable. It doesn't arrive in perfect timing or with a big announcement. It shows up slowly. And then suddenly, it's there. It happened on a random Wednesday. I was making coffee, humming some tune from the radio, barefoot, the windows open, sun pouring across the kitchen floor. And it hit me. I wasn't waiting anymore. I wasn't waiting for the ache to disappear. Wasn't waiting for a message that would never come. Wasn't waiting for some man to make it right, or for karma to knock on the right door. I wasn't watching the calendar. I wasn't checking if they were okay while pretending I wasn't still bleeding. I just was present, whole, unapologetically light. That morning, I made extra toast just because I wanted it. I took my time picking out earrings. I danced in my robe with a fresh face and no plans. And not once did I think about them, about her, about him, about the mess, because I wasn't surviving it anymore. I had surpassed it. I texted my best friend later that day. "I think I'm on the other side." She replied, "You sound like it." Not because of what I did, but because of what I stopped doing. Waiting. For an apology. For clarity. For closure. For someone else to tell me I could exhale. I had already exhaled, and the air never tasted so clean. I sat down with my journal, the one I started the day I found the first bra. It was nearly full now. Pages inked with disbelief, rage, grief, questions, revelations, and a whole lot of becoming. I turned to the last page. No fanfare, no dramatic music. Just soft afternoon light and the quiet hum of a world that had kept turning while I rebuilt myself. And I wrote, "I no longer look for them in crowds. I no longer check if they're still watching. I no longer imagine scenes where I finally say the perfect thing, because I already did, the moment I walked away and didn't return." I signed it. No initials, no flourishes, just my full name. Mine. Then I closed the journal. Not out of anger, not out of sorrow, out of completion. That chapter, that storm, that version of me, she made it. She didn't just survive a betrayal. She turned it into clarity, into space, into a life that finally felt like hers. I tucked the journal into the back of my bookshelf, not to hide it, but to let it rest. Then I opened a new one. Clean pages, no baggage, just potential. The first page read, "This is not a story about what they did. This is a story about what I did after, and who I became because of it." I smiled. Then I grabbed my keys, slipped on my shoes, and left the house not because I was running, but because I had nowhere left to escape from. The home was mine. The peace was mine. The future was wide and unwritten. And this time, I wouldn't be writing it with someone else's name. I'd be writing it as the woman who returned to herself and never handed that power away again.